Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at these speakers, which are Yamaha YST-M100s. Now I bought these as part of a package and it was mainly the other stuff in the package that I was interested in. But when I unwrapped it and saw how nice these things look, I thought they were worth taking a look at. Now Yamaha called these speakers micro monitors, which to me suggests they were aimed more at the hi-fi crowd than at the PC speaker crowd. I don't know exactly when they came out, but the earliest mentions I can find of these is 1999. And looking in computer mags at the time, I can't find any mention of these, even though the YST-M model numbering was used by all Yamaha's PC speakers at the time. But the fact I can't find mention of them in the computer mags along with the Micro Monitor model name to me suggests that they were aimed more at the hi-fi crowd. And indeed you could get a black version of these as well as this sort of beige version which would match, the hi-fi gear at the time. I also don't know how much these would have cost originally. But given that the model numbering suggests they sit somewhere towards the top of the range, I think these would have been pushing three figures even back then. Anyway, enough introduction, let's have a look at these speakers. Now, one thing that Yamaha did in pursuit of sound quality was to put a mono amplifier in each cabinet. So we've got a 20 watt mono amp in here and another 20 watt mono amp in here. Total of 40 watts output, which is plenty loud enough to fill your room with sound. But it does mean that these things are pretty weighty. This left hand cabinet here is 3.5 kilograms, which is about 7.7 pounds, and this right hand cabinet 2.5 kilograms, which is about 5.5 pounds. The 28 centimeters high, 12 centimeters wide, 17 centimeters deep, so these are going to look pretty big on your desk next to your retro gear. If we turn one of the cabinets round, you can see the casings are engineered wood, probably MDF, reasonably thick, so not your sort of cheap plastic casings you'd normally see. And each speaker is also magnetically shielded, so the thick casings, the magnetic shielding, that also adds to the weight of these. If we look at the jacks on the back, you can see in terms of sound input, we've got a 3.5mm jack or left and right RCA plugs for sound input, and output we've got a 3.5mm jack here for taking sound out, and another 3.5mm jack on the front for headphones. Now one quirk that this amplifier in each cabinet throws up is it means that these cabinets are connected by two cables rather than one. Power is hardwired into the right hand cabinet here by this cable, and there's a second hardwired cable into the left hand cabinet which plugs into here on the right cabinet to take power back to the left. But there's then a second cable which connects between these two connectors here, which look like 8-pin mini DINs, and that's responsible for taking sound and other information between the two cabinets. So two cables to connect these up rather than one, which is a bit weird, but it just means your cables have to be a good length, and unless you can get some sort of extender, you are restricted by the length of this hardwired cable for the maximum separation distance you can get between your cabinets. It's about 5, maybe 6 feet long, this cable, so it's not too short, but you couldn't have them, too far away either. Looking at the condition of these, you may be able to see we've got just a little bit of damage on some of these corners. They weren't packed brilliantly, but also, to be fair to the seller, it did look like the shipping company had been playing football with the package. So these, these dings on these rear corners, they look fairly fresh. They're not too bad. I'm sure we could sort that out if need be. Turning them back around. See here on the left cabinet, we got power on, and we've got this button which is immersion, I'm not sure. It's the word immersion but spelt with a Y rather than an I. It's one of those sort of DSP type processing things where it's supposed to give you sound, give it like a wider sound stage and improve the sound quality and all that. We'll see if that's any good later. Then on the other cabinet we've got volume, balance and separate controls for bass and treble, and there's that headphone out jack. Other than those few dings, overall condition of these is pretty good. Just taking one of the grills off, they just sit on 4 little pins, so these things are nice and easy to pop off. You can see that we have a 0.6 inch tweeter, a 3.5 inch main driver and a bass port. It's exactly the same in this cabinet as well. I think they look pretty cool without the grills on as it happens. I think that looks great. I love this sort of white and black effect on that main driver. The overall condition of these isn't too bad, these little dings accepted. The cabinets, the colour on these still looks good. There's slight yellowing on this sort of plastic part at the front here, but the main yellowing is on these control buttons. They've really yellowed pretty bad compared to the rest of it. Now, if the sound quality on these is good, I think it'd be worth doing a full restoration on these, but that will have to wait, I'm afraid. It's late October as I'm filming this, and I don't have the means for any sort of indoor retrobrighting. I have to do that outside in the summer on the odd sunny day that we're lucky enough to get. So yeah, that'll have to go on the back burner for now, but definitely pretty good nick overall, and a full restoration will bring these up to near top quality, I reckon. Just a quick note here on this plug. This wasn't the plug that these things would have come with. In fact, they wouldn't have come with a UK 3-pin plug on at all. It wasn't uncommon at the time here in the UK for some electronic devices either to have the wrong plug on or not to have a plug on at all, and you were expected to stick your own plug on. Now, if you know what you're doing, it's always worth just opening the plug up when you've got retro gear from somebody else. Open the plug up, have a look, check the wiring inside. This one, for example, the wiring inside was pretty poor and the fuse was the wrong value. So I'm glad I checked that before I plugged that in. Always worth doing. Just as a quick point of comparison, here's one of my Yamaha YST-M10s. These are the speakers that I normally have hooked up to my retro computers. Immediately you can see that these M100s are much bigger. We've got these sort of cheaper plastic casings on the M10s, not this sort of engineered wood on the M100s. And as you'd expect, the M100s are much heavier. These things are much lighter than the M100s, even though that's the heavier of the two speakers. Just a single driver in these as well. There's a 3-inch driver in these. They've still got the little bass port, mind. No tweeter, unlike the M100s. In fact, I did a video on these not too long back where I was doing a quick repair, so if you want to learn more about these, check that video out. I'll put a link either on the screen somewhere or down in the description. You can also see much simpler controls on these. There's no balance control, so you've got to try and set them up so you're sat directly in the middle of them. We've just got power, presence and volume. So presence, that's a little bit like bass and treble, but it's as if the two are linked together. So you turn it up, more bass, more treble, turn it down, less bass, less treble. Whereas obviously these, the M100s, separate controls for each. Right, let's get these M100s hooked up to a computer and we'll see how they sound. Right then, bit of a squeeze, but I've got the M100s hooked up on the desk next to my M10, so we can do a bit of a comparison between the two. If we just pan the camera down a little bit, we're hooked up to this computer here, which is a Pentium 3 running Windows ME. And you can see under the desk we've got two subwoofers. They're identical. They are Yamaha YST MSW25s, I think it is. And I really think each of these sets of speakers benefits from a sub to really sort of fill out that bottom end. So since the subs are identical, I still think this is a fair test. You can just see little switch box down here in the corner. Basically the output from the computer is fed to the switch box, and then we can use that to flick between each set of speakers. I've set them up as best I can get each one to sound, but you know, this is not a scientific test. This is just my opinion of what I think sounds good and how I can, you know, how I can get these to sound. But just remember, one person's opinion, what I like, for example, it won't be what somebody else likes. I've downloaded some songs from the YouTube audio library, so let's open them up, have a listen, and we'll see how these things sound. So there you have it. We heard the difference between the M10s and the M100s in those couple of music tracks there, and in Unreal Tournament as well. I chose those tracks in particular because there was quite a lot of separation between the sort of bottom end notes and the top end stuff, and the reason for that is when it comes to the bottom end, don't think there's anything to choose between them, which you'd expect given they're running the same subs connected to them. Mid-range on these speakers is also fairly similar too, I think. However, when it comes to the top end stuff, maybe because of the tweeter or maybe just because they're better quality speakers, the M100s, they bring out the top end a lot better than the M10s. You can hear the higher notes and they kind of stand out from the mix better, and there's a lot more clarity with them. And you'd expect that, you know, given that they're clearly a higher model, if you like, they're a step up, if you like, over the M10. So I think overall, music listening, they sound absolutely great. Gaming, yep, no problems on them either. So although for now I'm going to pack these back up over the winter, next summer we'll get them out, we'll give them a proper restoration, we'll retrobrite the bits that need doing and whatnot, and then I think these are going to become my main computers for my retro rigs. I'm really impressed with the sound quality on them. I think they sound great and I'm looking forward to using them some more. But for now I'm just going to say I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, let me know. Thank you very much for watching and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.